Well, I've been putting this off this video and being really chatty about other stuff, but I don't know if I'll really get through it. But some of you know that I had found a dog running loose in the streets, and it was, underweight and starving. And so I opened my car door and it jumped in, and I took it home and started taking care of it. Fed it right away. It ate 2 bowls of, 2 cups of dry food, nothing even, and a bowl of water. And the truth is, I actually knew who the owner was. He was a man I had been, he's not a street guy, but, he has a home, but, well, you don't know. That's why I'm talking to him. I had given him money. I mean, we talked because he had the dog as a puppy, very small, and now it had grown. And I have a dog, and so we'd gotten to chatting, and more than once he had told me, well, he didn't have enough money, and he couldn't feed the dog, and they didn't have money to eat. And I said, oh, wait, let me get you some money, because I was only a block from my house. And so I began on a regular basis whenever I saw him say, is everything okay? Do you need some money? Do you need anything for food? And given him food as well. I'd given him a big package of chicken, but then it occurred to me that he might be living in a place where he couldn't cook or where there was no propane, whatever, and that we'd better just let him have it. And I would see him. He sometimes sat outside of a convenience store, something like in the States they call it a 7-Eleven, but very similar to that. And apparently they let people like him open and close the door in the hopes that some people will give him tips. And Mexicans are not famous for tipping, by the way. And if they do tip, they're famous for tipping at 10%. That's why they generally like foreigners. We tend to tip at 15% or even 20%. But the reason I didn't drive by, or he had moved, or drive by or look for him, is because just 4 days earlier, I had given him 20 pounds of high-grade dog food, plus a pot of two pots, one for the food, one for the water, and a measuring cup. And also, I had given him basically 400 pesos, the equivalent of about $20, so he could get the dog vaccines, because he said the dog had parasites. And I also had given him some medicine I had, but said he really needs to have an injection. Of course the dog has parasites, because I once saw him eating a raw chicken leg while his owner was sitting there opening and closing the door for the convenience store. And I knew it was risky. I knew that your obligation when you find a dog, if you know the owner, is to notify the owner, and if you don't know the owner, is to basically drive the neighborhood where you found the dog and say, hey, is this your dog? But I didn't do that. I didn't do that because I felt a real affection for this dog. Since it was a baby, a puppy, I first met it was about 3 or 4 months, and at that time I said, gee, if you ever have an issue with being able to take care of it, I would be glad to give you money for your dog. No, I couldn't sell my dog. I said, no, okay, well, I'll continue to help then. And he is not disabled, but he has a little issue with balance. And so at that time he was using a crutch for his balance. He has one leg that's shorter than the other, but I saw that actually recently he somehow was supplied with an orthopedic shoes that balanced him out. Also, I knew, because he told me, that his church was helping him with money. So, it was clear to me, Mexico does not really have a disability system at all. You people live off their friends and family or their church if they can't work at all. And this, I don't know if he could work. He doesn't work. That's what he does. So I took him home and I fed him and added chicken and beef and stuff I give my dog, who's elderly and like me, and who has is in the early stages of spinal arthritis. And I wanted her to lose weight. She's a little chubby little dog, so that it'd be easier on her back. So I started feeding him that, and letting him. I have a big yard; he could run loose and it's gated, and that worked for about 20 days, and it was inevitable. I knew that he would eventually show up on this street because he only lives about 5 blocks away, and he knows people on this street. And when he came and he saw the dog, of course the dog was excited to see him, Dog doesn't know she's been abused. I mean, he'd keep that dog tied to him all day long, tied to him. So the dog the dog to pee squatted like a female dog. The dog was never loose to raise a leg the way a male dog would do. And the dog did not have adequate water and adequate food, obviously. And he wanted his dog back. And I said, I can't do that because I know that you are not feeding this dog. I'd taken the dog to the vet. I had a report on it. I said, I have a report. This dog has been underfed. It's it weighs less than it should for its size. It's now a 6 or 7 month old dog. It should weigh more. It has parasites. It's just had an injection for parasites and also an oral thing. He's had a blood test. He's in good shape except for the parasites. I can't do that. He said, well, we're going to give it to me. I said, I'll be glad to compensate you for that. No, I don't want money. And so I said, no, I can't do that. And so this went back and forth. And I said, look, it's getting late. I'm going in. And the dog by that time lost interest in him, was running around. And the next morning, he was sitting across the street from my house, saying, I'm waiting for the police. In fact, he said that night. I called the police. I said, well, listen, I called 911. I said, it's not an emergency. They're not going to come. And they didn't. But the next day he said, I called the police and he's waiting across the street. And I was like actually getting ready to take the dogs to the beach. It was Sunday morning. And so I did. I put him in the car and he said, well, the dog didn't get any exercise. I said, yeah, we'll go to the beach right now. And that was that. But the next day he arrived again, late afternoon. This was a Monday. And this time again, he said he called the police. And this time the police did show up. And he said, you're going to jail. You're going to jail. I said, I'm not. You've been abusing this dog. You've been neglecting and maltreating this dog. And I'm going to report you if you don't leave us alone. And he said, well, you're going to jail. And now he was saying, I stole his dog. And I said, no, I rescued this dog that was starving. So the police arrived and we went back and forth, the same story I'm just telling you. And I had paperwork from the vet. And he had early paperwork because I knew his church had helped him get the first shots for that dog when he was 3 months, but the dog was way overdue for the second and third, actually. He's supposed to get another. So the police listened to our story. My story was I rescued the thing, and his story is I stole his dog. Dogs do get stolen, but that's for kidnapping, for ransom, and obviously I wasn't asking him for a ransom, quite the opposite. I was offering him compensation. So the police listened, they look at his paperwork, look at my paper, look at his videos, look at my videos, and then they said to him, this is the things you guys have to work out. You have to work out an agreement between the two of you, and if you can't come to an agreement, and you don't like the answers, you have to go to the municipal government and file a claim against her, a complaint against her. And I said, fine. And I understood that meant they recognized him. They recognized the situation. They recognized him from the way he presented himself. It's clearly, he couldn't take care of the dog. He was not in a position to take care of the dog, financially or physically, because the dog had really gotten, by now, big, and after 3 weeks of me, really more muscular and strong, and plus been running around, So I said that's very reasonable. I was basically willing to wait it out and make my case, or if I felt I was going to lose, release the dog. But I could not willingly give the dog back to a man I knew was neglecting it. That's all. I just couldn't do that. And the next day he arrived with somebody who said was a lawyer. It was a big, heavy-set woman, all dressed up like I don't know what. She had like false eyelashes, lips that looked like tire trucks. Chuck's tires, and she was wearing a red satin blouse that opened in the front so you could see her bra, and spike heels. And she said she was a lawyer. I said, may I have your card? No. I went, no. She's not going to work out. But she gets a piece of paper out of her car, but waves it in front of me, does not let me see it. So I don't know her name or any of the things she says. And I say to him, how do you know her? Well, I went on the internet and he found it. So we went back and forth. She said, well, I said, the police told us what to do. We should file a report. Go ahead and file the report. I'm prepared for that. And at that time, she pretended she didn't speak English. A neighbor of mine had just stopped by to help me with something. And he was bilingual. And I said, geez, can you help me with this? And he was doing the translation of what she was saying to him and saying to me. So anyway, that's where we settled it. They said they were waiting for the police. I went inside. And then it was getting very hot in my house, and I needed to do some errands. So I loaded the dogs into the car, and I have to open my gate manually to let them out. And I did that, and when I backed out, she opened the back door of my car and grabbed the dog and ran with it. And I ran after her, and I have some bruises from running after her, and tried to get it away from her, but I failed. I mean, first of all, she's like 50 pounds heavier than me and 50 years younger than me. But at that moment, she managed to get it into her car, the dog in her car. At that moment, a police car appeared on the corner, and I waved them down, and I said, hey, these people, they robbed my perro. They stole my dog. Again, the police stopped, and they heard our long tale, and, here's the truth. Possession is 9/10 of the law. Always has been, always will be. When I had possession of the dog, the police did not say to me, we looked at the paperwork, it's his dog, give it to him. Because police do not make judgments. They are not judges. They don't make judgments. And now they have possession of the dog. So the police said, well, I could go make a complaint on the basis that I'm, 85 years old, and basically she had hit me. But the truth is, I attacked her. I ran after her. I just ran after her and grabbed at her, and she pushed me away. And of course, I got smacked, and my arms got bruised. And I thought about it. In that one moment, on the second time, I went, oh, it's over. It's over. I'm a foreigner, and there's only so much I can do. I did the most I could do. So the other day I drove by the market, and there he was out front with a dog. But at least the dog was, I guess, tied to some sort of one of those truncheons, one of those poles that keep a car from running into the windows of the shop. It wasn't tied to him. That's my story. I wish it was better.